It's like magic.
All right, we're on stage. Hi, everyone watching the stage.
Hello.
We are here. So I think we have just a few seconds. And everyone will be able to come in. And so I just
22 watching already.
Yeah, Najee, we are good to go. We're live, and I'm just going to welcome everybody back to our final session of the first day of Boston FinTech Week. It's been an incredible day of content, and I just can't tell you. I'm Sarah Biller. I'm the co-founder of FinTech Sandbox. I've had a chance, to be part of this team that's put on Boston FinTech Week for the last 4 years, and it has been an incredible day of content. We have long regretted being virtual, I have to say. We wanted to be back together this year. We're a collegial global community, but man, has the engagement been great. And here I am with two amazing, legendary guys. And I don't say that in a way that is hyperbole or otherwise, but just in the initial idea that you each have been pioneers. And I want to welcome Najee Goode and Ari Kaplan to the Boston FinTech Week community. I want to make sure everybody who's listening is prepared, bring questions through the chat. We're excited because this is a category of learning for us in the community that I think is new, it's evolving, and it's fast-paced. And I'm going to go ahead and share what a dork I am, because when I think about data in the financial markets, and I'm a data person, we think about it a lot in this category as PII, or personally identifiable information. And that means, obviously, for everyone knows this, if you're an industry person and you've had any back office responsibilities, never let a credit card number seep, never let a social security number out, any health records. But, we spend a lot of time protecting it, a lot of time legislating it. But now we see this evolution and this need for personal data, this data about yourself. And it enables us to build greater services, greater products. And Ari and Najee, you two, again, I just want to use those words, have been on the forefront of thinking about personal data. And you've done it through the lens of athletics and professional sports. And so I'm just thrilled to be sitting here with you. And, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves. I could go on and on, but your voices are so better and much better at that. And Ari, I want to start with you. You do carry a really interesting title right now. You're the global AI strategist, evangelist for DataRobot. And that belies a rich history that people have written books about. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you mind just kind of opening up and giving us a little bit of your background and what brought you here?
Sure. Well, thank you for having both of us. Very excited. And that point hit home of being in person. I do love these meetings as well, but the last major conference before the pandemic was in Boston at the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, which is like the biggest one in the world. Started out at MIT, now like all the famous presidents and everyone kind of attend, and that was just super. But with DataRobot, we're leading artificial intelligence platform company, and my role as global AI evangelist is just traveling around the world, talking to customers, understanding why should you go to AI, what can it do for you, and why do it now, and how have companies failed and succeeded, and just share stories and make relationships that way. And then apropos to this audience and topic, I have a rich experience in sports and sports analytics. So at DataRobot, I'm like the go-to sports person. We work with a whole bunch of different teams. I had a really fun summer traveling around with Mario Andretti Motorsports, trying to apply analytics to help them win at 200 miles an hour. But everyone from Man City, Premier League, to the Boston Red Sox and Philadelphia 76ers, Brooklyn Nets, and many others. But before, so that fulfills any question folks have in chat on AI or sports or data or analytics. I'd love to get those questions. Before DataRobot, I've been known for being like the Moneyball guy. I created the Cubs analytics department, was the first Dodger in-house analyst, and also assistant to the GM of many teams. Most recently, the Baltimore Orioles. So many playoff experiences. So I have the lens of having like the deep AI. How do you take data and understand personal evaluations? But then also I've been a major league scout and advanced scout. So looking at the humanistic aspects of it and where they all mesh up together and everything in between. Also have known for being president of the Worldwide Oracle User Group, a big technology company when we acquired Java and PeopleSoft. So did a few fun things along the way.
Yeah, Ari, thank you. We see, you in a different lens today than we all did when we watched the movie. So so thank you for that breadth of experience that you share with us. And Najee, the same, right? You've had this wonderful background. I hope you'll introduce yourself, but you found yourself as a professional football player. You've just retired after a decade in the NFL. You're also a girl dad for anyone who sees Najee talking to his daughter, which I personally love too. She's going to probably pop on the screen. But, no, Najee, please, we love it. And so, but let's go back. Professional football player turned digital strategist for professional football teams, a FinTech entrepreneur. I just think the two of you, if you don't mind, give us a little introduction so we know where we are. And
yes,
we'll forgive you for the daughter. I've been that daughter, so I love that you're very patient. But anyway,
yes,
Najee, who are you? Yeah.
Yes, that is my oldest daughter. We have the same birthday, so it's my twin. I'm a girl dad, 10-year vet in the NFL. Yes, baby, can you please sit down? I apologize so much. No, Liliana, go sit down, please. Here. I'm so sorry. So, I'm a 10-year vet, retired recently from the Philadelphia Eagles and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Fortunate enough to win a Super Bowl and played in college sports before we had the whole change of NIL. And now working on the NIL with West Virginia as a partner in the school to oversee the NIL deals with University of West Virginia. But there's been a lot of interesting things that I've learned in starting my own technology company, dealing with the monetization of name, image, and likeness, and actually creating an engine to where the influencers in the world of sports, which are the athletes that, people actually pay, hundreds of thousands or, X amount of money to view and watch. And it's been an interesting career to understand from the perspective of being a player, where we want to necessarily do marketing influence or marketing and, basically exposing ourselves to the world of name, image, and likeness and the interesting data points that are collected around athletes. And I'm excited to be here and excited to share. I think I don't do justice with Ari, and I'm appreciative of actually being here and learning, but we do have a unique perspective on name, image, and likeness and how it affects the sports world and all of the different influencers as specific, being athletes in the world of sports and personalized data and how companies interact with that data when it pertains to fans. So I'm excited to be here and speak on behalf of that.
Yeah, and Najee, you've really set up our discussion well between you and Ari. If you really think about the idea, let's talk for a minute about the sports industry. And, it's really been on the forefront of collecting and utilizing personal data and to that next level of monetizing it. And, as a financial services sector, all the interesting people on the other side of this are thinking, how are we going to overcome some of the challenges we have? And frankly, profit from it, make some money. And I know there's lots of lessons in here for the FinTech community. And Ari, I think I'd like to, if I may, I'm going to kick it back to you for a minute because you're so well regarded with your work on collecting and analyzing professional athletes' data. Can you kind of share with us a little bit about at a high level what that personal data looks like? And then, in that collection cycle, where might we learn in the FinTech community about collection of personal data, what it is and learn? Yeah.
Sure. And Najee, contributed his thoughts on like the licensing on a personal level. And then from a team perspective, extremely valuable. So like Major League Baseball, 162 games a year. Mm-hmm. And each game, if you win it, it's on average $11 million. You can win one game. If you can make one more play or make one fewer error. That's $250,000. So I remember I was sitting with one of the owners and somebody made an error, and I'm like, that cost you $250,000. He's like, don't tell me, but overall, yeah, that's big money. And then like at the collegiate level, we'll get into discussion of what that means to monetize it. That just gives you a general idea. $1 billion franchises, the value of their athletes, the value of the first round draft pick could be hundreds of millions of dollars to that franchise. So, the other challenge is, you have 6.7 million Little League players in America alone, and you only have 1,280 roster spots. So how in the world do you filter out and find, signal which players are likely to even have a chance of getting drafted or make it? And that's where some of the personal data starts coming in. There's personal data. When you're younger, it's more like purely subjective. You have scouts look at the player, figure out what might they develop into, like what's their future look like versus now. You go into their home if they're promising, talk to their parents, talk to their teammates, talk to their school teachers, what type of person there are. And that may sound like in the world of analytics, like people say, oh, you don't really need to do that. But what I find is, the personalities could play a big role in their future success. If interested in chat, I could talk about some of the studies I've worked on where you evaluate high school and college players based on personality tests. And there's certain characteristics that lead to a much better chance of making it like the NFL or a significant contribution. So, but for me, the thing that really quantifies on the personal data is, are they willing to adjust? So one of my claim to fame was this baseball player, Hunter Pence, who later became the captain of the San Francisco Giants, won World Series. But at the time of the Houston Astros, half the scouts thought we should promote him and half didn't. And of course, the owner and general manager and manager all looked at me and said, Ari, you're the tiebreaker. His entire hands.
No pressure. Yeah.
And my answer was probably what it should be is like, let me look into it and get back to you in a few days. It's an important decision. But one of the things I looked at was how willing was this player to adjust all the game, like NFL, NBA, everyone's adjusting to you. And I looked and saw that he studied the opposing pitcher, and every time he would face the opposing pitcher in the same game or a future game would adjust more than others. And so I gave that strong recommendation that he has the ability to adjust and the willingness to. Then I've worked with other players who are rookies of the year. That means you're the best player of that year. But he, in this case, didn't want to adjust. And he had what they called the sophomore slump, but he wouldn't listen to me. He wouldn't listen to his coaches. He was always the best little league, high school, college, minor league player. So that is like some personal data, very valuable. How likely are you to adjust? And then other data, like at the most extreme, like you can record everything going on a player in the game. It's called terabytes of data, 30 seconds. Every coordinate of what they're doing, using, where their eyes are looking, all automated. And then on the personal side, one thing I'd love to drop in the conversation is like injury information, attitude information, instincts. Some of that is very private. Some of that you have to share. Like if you're trading a player and you know they're injured, you have to disclose it, not to the public, but to the team that you're trading.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't always do it, and it's hard to prove one way or another. So personal information, on one hand, should be very private. On the other hand, could be very helpful for decisions.
Yeah. Ari, I love that. Wow, I think Najee's doing some adjustment. Don't keep adjusting because I'm going to stick Najee with Ari for a minute. So don't worry, put yourself on mute, put yourself in a good place. We are so chill here. It's totally fine. But let me go back, Ari, for a minute to you, because you mentioned something that I think the financial markets, we think about a lot too, and that is behavioral reaction, flexibility, resilience, willing to like go into a trade where in the last moment you might have some hesitation. And you mentioned you've been part of some of those psychological studies. And I think if you wanted to cue just one of those ideas very quickly, like, how are you measuring that? I know we think about it, going in and exiting trades, but any inputs there on your thinking about behavior?
Hello?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways.
Hello?
One is just a major league scout would go ahead and just talk to the player and use like free flow text. This player is an elite champion. He has a go-getting attitude. Mm-hmm. And you can use AI to combine those words that the scout had with some of those biomechanical metrics. So some of it is just the scouts being free flow. And when you get tens of thousands of reports over the years, you can start using AI to tease out. But above and beyond that, there's things like, physical tests, like how flexible are they that you put in there. There's profiles like were their parents divorced, anything like that, which actually is not indicative. Some players, that's a good thing. Some players, that's neutral. Some players, that's bad. But then there's some psychological profile. There's IQ tests. And the goal of AI is to figure out what the signal is among all of that. So I found like when I was with the Cubs, we hired a company to do that, and there was like no noticeable value of those reports. But others were asked the right questions in the right way. And in the data science world, the FinTech audience, I don't know how technical it is, but like the increase in R squared was 0.22, meaning you're able to tell like basically 22% more accuracy of if they're able to run so many miles an hour or throw so many miles an hour, then they have answered questions in a certain way.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. 22% more likely to make the majors and make a success at the majors. But the thing is, you need AI to get as much input as you can and help determine where the signal is and what situations.
Yeah, Ari, it is that interesting time too about the use of data, and you just transitioned us. And I apologize, everyone. I think Najee's having some trouble with his system. So, Ari, if I might too, just kind of think about what you just shared about that you can have such a significant increase in your R squared and your confidence of your models. And I know one of the questions we were going to get to is that process of collection, and then later on sort of ask you about your behind the scenes. And in this case, maybe in your early days on the baseball teams, or even more here with DataRobot, kind of talk to us about what it means to actually take in an abstract idea, a little bit abstract in some ways, into your models and form that thesis around how you improve performance. How do you use personal data to kind of push an outcome?
Yeah. So the kind of the old saying is like put as much information as you can collect into a model. And I found in the earlier days, like there's a lot of superstition where people would be biased in what information was helpful and what wasn't. And then there was confusion of, we have 1,000 variables. What is most important and what's not important? So one of the kind of magic about AI is we call them features, but you could call them variables. What variables and in what situations are most appropriate? So from the personal data, it might be that their aggressiveness or their politeness or their willingness to learn or not learn may resonate more in different positions. So, Najee, if you're a quarterback, a running back, quarterback, halfback, punter, kicker, long snapper, they may have different qualities that indicate success or not. So having the variety of data and the volume of data could be extremely, helpful for that. The challenge in the past was collecting data, storing data, collating data, running models, trying different things. Typically it takes weeks or months to like write a Python program and do, some TensorFlow analysis or other modeling, linear regression. So that's where DataRobot comes in. I don't necessarily want to be a salesperson, but I love explaining it, that we created this auto machine learning, or auto ML, where we automate boring, repetitive, time-consuming aspects. So at the end, you can ask and answer these questions in a matter of minutes or hours versus days or weeks. So the world today in AI, you can literally just take tons of data, put it into the witch's brew, so to speak, mix it up, and it'll inform you which variables or features are most important in what situations. And then the data scientists become more like elevated. They're focused on more of the complex problems than just kind of doing these R Python projects for days and weeks on end. So that's collecting and then the next exciting thing is not just numeric data like it used to be. Have the scout grade them on a scale of 20 to 80. How fast do they run? 100 yards. But now you can take text of the scouts and put that in and do analysis. You could do geospatial data, and you can now do image data and video. So I'll pause there. I'd love to get more into the video. But let me pause there for a second.
Yeah, no, I think there's enormous interest in the video, in the different forms of data, but we have had a really interesting question come in, and I don't want to derail where you're heading, but there is a question about where would someone start if they really wanted to jump in the field, and I'm assuming they're going to think about the field of, data, sports analytics, overlay with AI. So you might have different answers for each of those disciplines, given how you've explained it, Ari. But the question is, where would they start?
Well, yeah, it all depends on your skill level. So there's a couple of different roles. There's like the role of like an analyst at any of the global sports world. There's a website called Teamwork Online where I checked last night, there are over 3,000 job openings across sports around the world. So depending on what you're looking at, but if you're looking to do like data science or analytics, back when I started, it was like a one-person show. You had to do data collection, data cleaning, SQL, like putting it into a database, Python, R, SAS to write models, visualization, be the person to communicate and collaborate with the non-technical folks. Now the good news is there's teams of each of those skill sets. So depending on what you're looking for, but if you're looking for like the pure data science, most sports are like Python by far is the winner, and then R, being able to know how to do models like linear regression, random forest, and so on. That's to kind of get your foot in the door. And if you want to like take it to the next level, artificial intelligence is where the market is headed. So taking video and making features out of it, like taking video of a soccer team, seeing what foot did they kick with, what foot did they receive with, how did they dribble in basketball, what was the formation, was there somebody open that they could have thrown to, and that could all be automated by people, like those listening in on this conversation. That's where the world is headed. Some of them are open source, something called OpenPose, created by MIT, can take any video, but then there's a gazillion companies that help take video and make features out of it. Don't like self-plugging, but I also do teach a couple of courses on data science in sports. It's smww.com. I famously had Mike Matheny, who took my course. He was a world champion player and manager of the Cardinals, but he got critiqued saying, you're great and all in the past. He got fired, but you he was the first coach to take a team to the playoffs 4 years. First 4 years as a manager, didn't get to the playoffs his 5th year, so they fired him. But I won't make a judgment call, but they said he's not well-versed in analytics. So took my course, interviewed for the Royals managerial job, and then got that. So you could be any walk of life. And, if you're focused on visualization, you can focus just on that. But my advice to just get started is go to Teamwork Online, look at job descriptions, see what skills are required, and then fill in the gaps if you have the gaps.
All right, I think that just there were so many nuggets in that discussion about how do you get started and where do you go. And I was going to ask you just a question, and you embedded it in your answer about sort of what's your team like day to day? Where are they focused on? And it sounds like you've got discrete capabilities that are driving a lot of your modeling and efforts. And you started talking about a new form of data, which is video, which is, sort of multimedia. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? It actually sounds super cool.
Sure. So I'll start with that, and then I can talk about day-to-day life. So, there's only so many, there's limitations to collecting data. Mm-hmm. There's a Hawkeye system with Major League Baseball that tracks everything that goes on in the game. But it's expensive. It's multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's only licensed by Major League Baseball. So like high school, college, even minor leagues, they don't have that. But what you can do now is take video. You can even take your iPhone or Android, go to your Little League game, go to your high school basketball game. On your phone, just record the video, and there's a gazillion companies that will take it and say, here's how fast your kid pitches. Your kid, his arm angle is this, and versus this angle. Here's how quickly they're swinging the bat. For basically free.
Wow.
You could write your own program using OpenPose, but there's Mustard, ProPlay AI, Stats Performa. I'm missing tons of them, but a whole bunch of companies that can take video. So now that opens up. For example, Man City has a challenge of 500,000 soccer players around the world. They have not just Man City, it's Man City Group. They have a football soccer team in India. They have a women's football soccer team. They have one in New York and one in Manchester. But how do you take hundreds of thousands of kids and figure out who, give me the top 100 who's most likely to succeed? You can't send 500,000 scouts out there, too expensive, but you can use video to automatically record how quick they are, judge them automatically on like what their technique is, like creative technique, strong technique, predictable technique, weak technique, slow, fast, situational, good instincts, all automated. So just imagine this new type of data being collected across, like super easy, super inexpensive, but then it needs data scientists and people who know the sport to make sense of it all. That's the next challenge.
Yeah. And Ari, I so appreciate that, because the complexity of what you're talking about, the nuance that's being captured in the video. And you actually just fed into a question we've received from one of the viewers. They're asking about how do you see data getting into the hands of fans? Who knew that the fans were the data creators themselves at times? But let's just say for a minute, what happens when the data gets there into the hands of fans? And gosh, that rhymes. It's kind of funny, isn't it? And then also, what does it mean? How does it change the sports landscape? And then if you really want to go for the home run, no pun intended, what does it mean to FinTech? So 3-part question.
Okay, well, the first one, I had a fun experience in life. I started this company called Scoutables with the sole goal of getting data that is kind of in the hands of the teams and unleashing that to the public, letting the fans have as good, if not better, information than the teams themselves had. And it was like a social experiment that we did. So fans at one point had better analytic AI capabilities at their fingertips than the teams. What are the strengths, weaknesses, and habits of each player? The opponents, what the matchups mean. So, for like a year, it was pretty incredible. Started with Oral Hershiser, like a famous baseball world champion, most valuable player, Cy Young winner. Fred Clare, former world champion general manager. Had Rod Carew and Kirk Gibson, famous Hall of Famers involved. But that was great. And then the teams kind of caught up. And then Major League Baseball said, that's a good idea. We are going to unleash data. And there's this really good company, kind of similar to what I was doing, called Baseball Savant. Major League Baseball acquired them. And now you have this really proprietary data where you can see and rate their defensive abilities as a fan. So that has implications on fantasy baseball. For FinTech, like what, and sports, whole nother discussion. Gaming, gambling is getting really embedded with sports. You could go to Wrigley Field, and I don't know if it's there or not, but they're going to construct it, or they did, like a sports booking, like right outside the stadium. MGM just announced a huge partnership with professional sports, $1 billion relationships. So that's big. But what I would say for FinTech, it's really the concept. If you've seen the movie Moneyball, kind of laid it out, but the same concept of evaluating data objectively and subjectively to make better predictions. Like one of the things that some people were off-put with Moneyball was the players were called assets, similar to the financial world. Tampa Bay Rays called the players assets. So like, what are the strengths of the assets? How do you predict future performance based on past and comparable assets? How do you quantify it economically? So, in the FinTech world, it's if you're in the investment side, what can you predict based on creative ideas? Panama Canal, or whatever the canal was that kind of broke down. How does that affect commodities trading globally? So like running scenario planning, simulations, very relatable to FinTech. So that's predictions. And then, another aspect of FinTech is you may have customers. So using AI to understand what are your customers purchasing, what products are you selling, who's likely to churn, who's likely to upsell. So if you have hundreds of thousands of your own customers, you can get a guideline with AI of, your salesperson, you don't want to call upon hundreds of thousands of people. You want a list of who are the most likely to upsell and for the most money. And that's your daily report.
Yeah. It's there's so many analogs, and I guess I'm going to weave a question in here. It's somewhat from a listener, but also one I'm curious about. Just you think about, we've talked about, really just because of your background, a lot of baseball organizations who are interested in data. I'm going to assume, and maybe you could help vet my assumption, that other professional sports are interested in data. And then by extension, that kind of, broader category of enabling the players to use the data to create like NFTs or other monetization strategies. So are we going to see that across the board? Is it just, the purview of baseball to be using such sophisticated techniques? And then secondly, what does it mean down the road, to your point about similarities in financial assets, to use a word that I know you also said it rubbed people the wrong way, but
yeah. So you may want to repeat some of those questions, but in terms of the players themselves having data, one of the other trends are, two things. One is the players themselves want performance data to improve their capabilities. There's companies I work with now, Driveline Baseball, Rapsodo, but every sport has like analytics. Players want to know what their weaknesses are and what to learn from. And they have like high-speed, high-def cameras where they can have a grip of a ball, and try saying, what if I move my finger or change the scene? How does that affect my command, my movement, my deception? And they do that in near real time. Throw a pitch, run to the computer screen, watch like their fingers and scenes.
Subtle change.
Yeah. And sometimes it's instant fix. Sometimes it takes weeks or months to reimagine your muscle memory. Then on the financial side of players, they leverage data, personal data, public data for their negotiations for salaries, comparables. There's things called salary arbitrations, free agency signings, trades. And so now you're seeing agencies leverage data to paint their player in the best light and to understand economically my player's worth 12 million and you're only trying to pay him 10 million. So those are huge. And then the other topic was, especially around college and high school and amateur, being able to financially get endorsements has been a long time coming, but now that that's possible, that these players are going to want not just the mechanical, how can they be a better player, but how can I better get a social media following? How can I be a paid speaker? How can I convince Nike to, or Red Bull or anyone to sponsor me as a person? And what value is that? And that's just starting.
It is just starting. We're in the earliest part of this effort. And I think there is a question out there about sort of, is this idea of all this data, the shift that the Supreme Court allowed for name, image, and likeness to be monetized by college athletes. Do you have a sense if the universities themselves are going to be like the professional sports clubs? Are they going to start incorporating more tech, more data to make different decisions, or is there going to be a lag there?
Yeah, well, they will start doing that more and more and more since there's more money to be had, a huge amount of money. But even before that decision, I've been working with, like, especially Division I schools. Some of them have more budget than professional sports teams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like one college had a $10 million budget just on analytics, like creating an analytics lab, sensors that are wearable, cameras, hiring staff of people. I know someone else who left professional sports, like with a MLB team, to go to a Division I school and doubled his salary. So I know in many cases they pay double or more what Major League Baseball has. So there could be big money to be had. Like I know UT Texas, they have huge budget for their football programs, huge stadiums. The attendance is incredible.
Yeah. Do you kind of get a sense that this is a U.S. phenomenon? It also, I have to give credit to somebody who's listening in. Is this a U.S. phenomenon, or do we see like a global movement here? I can't imagine that we wouldn't, but we are interested in your thoughts here. Are the soccer teams or the football teams in Europe, for instance, engaging in this type of investment in data and technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the rest of the world was slow to pick on. I've been traveling around the world for a couple decades trying to be a cheerleader for sports analytics, and it was slow going, but so I would say it kind of started in baseball. When I started back in the 80s, I was only one of 3 people that I knew about. There could have been more, but 3 people that were hired by the teams to help make stuff with analytics. And now, like if you have those 3 people in the world, now if you have 3 people on a team, you're probably behind the times. There's separate groups on the player side of analytics, and then on the business side, people understanding marketing and ticketing. But yeah, for like global football, soccer, huge investment. So Man City, one of my customers I work with, but all across the Premier League, a huge amount of money. The Olympics, a huge amount of money. Have the opportunity to work with the U.S. Olympic team and the Israeli Olympic team. But yeah, they have like a lab, an entire center in Colorado Springs dedicated when Michael Phelps was swimming, that's when I got started. Electrodes all over his body, how to get a tenth of a second.
Yeah.
Formula One racing, F1, people don't realize is larger than the NBA. It's larger than MLB. It's larger than the NFL. They, have hundreds of millions of fans, and the amount of analytics is huge. They have is it 300 sensors per car, 1,000 times a second.
It's shocking how much data is being collected. All right, I'm going to wind us down. There's two really interesting questions. And I think everyone appreciates that you took this panel by yourself and you got pummeled by a lot of questions. So we'll apologize to you. And yes, well, thank you, because you've been amazing. And there is this obviously this pressing question out there. You've painted a picture of an exciting industry. You were, you pioneered it. You helped think about it. Again, we've all seen the movie. But now the question is what if you're a FinTech entrepreneur? Do you see opportunities in the same sort of discipline? I know you touched on it lightly, but the use of the discipline around that we're using in financial markets into the sports analytics world. Is there some similarity, or is that a bridge too far?
No, the parallels are strikingly similar. But first of all, both of them very quantitative. How do you take past information and make like time series? What will happen in the future, by minute, by second, by hour, by day? For the financial markets. But then there's also humanistic behavior. So in sports, these are humans. In FinTech, you're dealing with either price of assets that are influenced by human perception of what the value of the assets are. So you want to understand human behavior. And then, you all have your own customers. So the business analytics in sports is the exact same of FinTech. So how, what's the churn likelihood? How do you hyper personalize? So you're making email and marketing messages to each individual and not just to like 5 different personas. So each individual person can relate. One example, I worked with DataRobot for Kroger, a big retail chain. They have 60 million households in their loyalty program. And before they would 95% of all their sales went through people who were in their loyalty program, very popular. But they would, before automating their AI, just kind of have 5 or 6 messages or catalogs. And that was good. It worked. They made money. But now they do new models every day, and they physically print different catalogs that they mail to your home with different recipes, colors, order coupons, content to each of the 60 million households. And as a result, they got 9% lift, and that translated to hundreds of millions of dollars per year and increased sales. So that applies very well to the FinTech.
Yeah. All right. You just like literally created legions of people who have dreams of making this bridge. And so thank you. Because it was just perfect timing, Najee, because Ari just talked about the fact that FinTech entrepreneurs have a place in this exciting world. And if you Najee, can you take a couple questions? And are you okay to stick around just a few more minutes? Because I think, Najee, having you back. Yeah, gets us to kind of round out this question too. We were talking about sort of the power of the sports analytics discipline, of course, the financial ramifications that Ari talked about so well, how its likeness to FinTech and financial services and the lessons we can learn. And I mean, I take a lot away from our conversation earlier, Najee, when you were still on the call, and there's been really a question about sort of like the recent changes in the regulations with the NCAA and others. Talk to us a little bit, Najee, about this idea of name, image, and likeness and what it means and, how it might influence the way schools, universities look at athletics. And I'll paint you a picture, Najee, while you were away. Ari physically used his finger to talk about the criticality of a slight movement of your fingers on a pitch and what that might mean to the value of a player. And so I'll just leave you with we're all struck by that image. But you're doing something different at VEEPIO. I know you're lifting up and thinking about image data differently. Can you talk to us a little bit about it? Najee, I think, Ari, I can't hear Najee. Can you hear Najee?
No, I can see his.
Yes.
Here we go.
With like what Ari, you mentioned with Ari, the opportunity. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
We can. Yeah. Welcome back. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it lagging? Sorry, I'm so sorry. Is it clear? I just want to make sure it's clear.
Yeah. Najee, lean in a little
yes,
bit.
Yeah. In regards to name, image, and likeness, yeah, what we've seen with the recent changes, the opportunity for students coming out of high school draws. Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me?
We can. Yeah. Najee, try. Yeah. You're good.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Can
You're
you
good.
guys hear me?
Yeah. You're good. Okay.
Technical difficulties. I'm sorry. Can you guys still hear me or no?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. I think it's lag, so just keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Is that better? I do apologize. Can you guys hear me now? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. In regards to okay. Yeah, in regards to name, image, and likeness, what we've seen from data and the I would say the popularity and prestige of the player and what it's doing for the school. And what it's doing for the school. Right now with name, image, and likeness, it is allowing the actual school.
Ari, I hate to do this because Najee was just going to give us a stroke of brilliance.
Yeah.
But I do worry. I think, everyone, we've had a great day at Boston FinTech Week. And why don't we'll get Najee back for another session. Ari, I'm just amazed at your experience. And I'm going to close you out with that final question. Okay. Just really give a second to think about, everyone's wondering, if you had kind of one life lesson, it's a question that we got asked, that you didn't learn from a book, that you really lived this life lesson that shaped the way you look at data in sports. It doesn't have to be one, but can you share with us in closing that lesson?
I learned so much. I don't want to be too. I have like 20 different life lessons every day, but I don't know. I would say like the value of collaboration is incredible. I started off as a one-person team trying to do everything, but if you can work, sports is a team sport. Yeah. FinTech, to be able to accomplish like creating a product, getting profit, getting investors, optimizing portfolios, like that's also teamwork. It's very hard to do as individuals. So like having a culture where you can collaborate. Like I've been part of some teams where it's called groupthink, where you have one person in charge and everyone anecdotally finds evidence to support whatever their thought is for that day. Sometimes it works. Oftentimes it works if you have a lot of money or influence, but most of the time, you are more valuable through your partnership of others. And try. I've also learned to just kind of focus on the strengths of people. Nobody's perfect, but if somebody is better at organizing meetings, and another person's better at programming Python, and another person is just like a happy person to make sure everyone is motivated, and someone else comes up with creative ideas but can't do anything. Those are all strengths that if your team can afford it, it makes for better success.
Yeah, Ari, you've just left us with such inspiration, substance, and spirit. And so I can't think of a better way to thank you for the time we just spent together, close out the first day of Boston FinTech Week on a high note with you. Thank you. And I'm going to pass this back over to Kelly Fryer, who's going to close out the day. But Ari, we hope to see you again real soon. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you to the audience.
Yeah, see you soon.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Ari. We're so excited that you joined us. And thanks to Najee, and also so sorry that you had some tech issues. We'll have to have you back for another event, but we appreciate all of your time. Hello again, I'm Kelly Fryer, Executive Director of FinTech Sandbox. Wow, not a bad first day at all. Our team has been saying how engaged you all have been in the chats and in the Q&A, and the impressive number of people that have joined us for day one. We've been so excited to spend today with you. Not sure about you all, but some of my favorite comments from the day were, creating inclusive AI cannot be a passive function. The Boston ecosystem can do better by sharing the stories of its communities, which is exactly what we try to do here during Boston FinTech Week, and the importance of developing insurance for actual lifestyles were some of my favorites. It was great to take a deep dive into our day one theme of the current state of FinTech and where we are today, and kind of what's led us to this point. Tomorrow, we'll look at building a better tomorrow. We'll be right back here at 9 a.m. Eastern, kicking off with our fireside chat with Jimmy Chen, CEO of Propel. Then we'll get into parametric insurance and how to build a FinTech ecosystem. We'll have two more powerful fireside chats that I'm so excited about. One with Beth Johnson, CXO of Citizens Financial Group at noon, and one with Sally Krawcheck, CEO of Ellevest. And then in the afternoon, we'll look at blurring of FinTech and building financial security for everyone, and then wrap up the day with our fourth fireside chat featuring Mark Cassidy of Vestigo Ventures. Now, we invite you to stick around and join us for the networking rooms, meet some new faces from across the FinTech community. We have themed rooms if you're looking to connect with folks on specific topics like capital markets and blockchain and insurtech, some of the themes we covered today. And we also have some just general networking rooms too, if you just want to meet with anyone and just connect with the community. All you have to do to get to it is just click those three little lines at the top of your screen there and select networking spaces. Head on over there. We'll see you over there ourselves, and hopefully see you in the morning